just let her see if she wants anything. Well, good morning. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Happy to see some new faces, returning faces. My name's Austin, one of the organizers, along with these other beautiful people here. If you want to talk, if you want to speak, if you know somebody that wants to speak, starting a new business, old business, whatever, like today, 30 years in business, right? 20 or 30 years in business?
70. 50.
Come and talk. Come and share your knowledge or get knowledge. Thank you to the sponsors that make this possible every morning. Unistation Deli, where we're currently sitting this morning. And I believe, on to you, a man who needs no introduction. Everybody knows you. Come on. You're up. Everybody knows who you are. I'm going to get this out of your way.
Yay, Mike!
Good morning. If you don't know who I am, I'm Mike Wiggins, and I own Granny Shaffer's restaurant. But as all of you have a story, I have a story as well. We're going to talk a little bit about things about me that you don't know. Many of you don't know that I lived in North Africa for 3 years. I lived in Bermuda, Morocco, Spain, Portugal, the Azores, Canada, and the United States. My dad was in the U.S. service, and he traveled, and we went with him. If we didn't get a station that we could go, he probably wouldn't have took it. When I was always been an entrepreneur. When I was 4 years old, I bought a bag of jelly beans and repackaged them and sold them. I'm not kidding. I don't know if I made money or not, I don't remember, but I remember doing that. My mom thought that was kind of cool. So, when I was in the fourth grade, I was captain of the block. I don't know why. They just made me the captain of the block. In the 5th grade, we lived in Michigan, and they grew apples that you could eat grew along the highway like hedge apples grow here. You get, and they weren't very big. They're usually little round green ones. So my sister and I got a wagon and would go around and pick the green apples, which made awesome pies if you could peel 50 of them. And then we'd go around and put them in bread bags. And my mom always said bread bags for some reason. I think that was the thing they used to do. And then we'd sell the apples out of the bread bags. That was when I was in the 5th grade. So there was a lot going on. When I was 12 years old, I got my first job that had a paycheck, and I was a cook at a Boy Scout camp. I was the staff cook. They didn't have cooks it was a wilderness camp, so the campers brought their own stuff, and all I had to do was feed the staff. The first year I was the assistant cook. There were 2 cooks, and I got $9.99 a week, and I lived in an army tent. And they didn't have beds or anything. You just got a tent with some pallets on the bottom, and then you brought your own cot. Luckily for me, my dad had one of those canvas cots that snapped apart that weighed 100 pounds each. But that took me through the summer. And I still have that check, by the way, the stub from that first job. I wanted that job so bad. To be honest with you, that was one of the best jobs I ever had. You were the first one up in the morning, and the last one in bed at night. And you had to light we had a potbelly stove that you had to light, and then the coil ran through it and burned. The wood would heat up the water as it would run through, and then you could take your shower. So I built that in the morning. Well, by the time I got done cooking and got done, the fire was all burned out, but nobody put any more wood in there, so I had to go back and fill it back up again. And that job also included you were the mailman. It was a wilderness camp. They locked the gate unless there was an emergency. You had to walk with a gunny sack to pick up the mail and come back. That's part of the job. And then you're also the camp plumber, because the campers, we provided water. So the plastic water lines would occasionally break. You'd have to dig them up, hook them back together, glue them, and fix that. That was my first year at camp. The second year, I was the head cook. And they get, back then the government gave the Boy Scouts what they call commodities, which they still have today. You get cheese, beans, canned meat, peanut butter and jelly, bacon. Some was good, some wasn't so good. And then they'd give me that list of all the things we had. Then I had to plan a menu for 75 guys, 3 meals a day, for the summer. And I'm 12 or 13 years old. Could you imagine? Can anybody hire a 12 or 13 year old to do that? But you know, I didn't even blink an eye. I didn't think, and the stuff that we couldn't get, and we got shortening in a can, and all kinds of stuff. So we prepared the menus, and then they take me to the store to buy the other things that we needed. What kind of cooking experience did I have? Maybe on a campfire and watching my mom in the kitchen. So those guys were up in for a treat. None of them starved. We had great meals. Had a kitchen. My dish pit in my restaurant is bigger than that kitchen was. Had a flat grill. Then I had a round stove that had gas burners on the window like this. They weren't like individual ones. It was just big circular ones. And then I had an iron skillet. I'll tell you what, if you could find that iron skillet today, it would be worth bundles because people collect those things. But it could go all the diameter of the whole thing. And I cooked like fried chicken and that kind of, and frog legs in there. But, and I take the government commodity shortening, and then they bring me, and the first time I got fried chicken, they bring me these chickens in the box. They're not cut. I didn't know how to do it, so one of the older guys showed me how to cut up chickens. Before the summer of the first year, I knew how to cut chickens really, really good. And I have several scars. Believe it or not, human skin cuts just like human skin. That was exactly the same, because you drop that chicken in there or something, it cooks. So anyways, that was one of my favorite jobs of all time. It built character. I learned a lot. And again, I would start pancakes on the grill. The guys come up. We'd make pancakes one day. We'd have bacon and eggs to order. We always had milk and cereal for everybody. And we just put it in a pasture window. They picked it up, and then they were in charge of cleaning up the kitchen and everything, or the dining room. Now, the camp counselor told me, okay, Mike, I don't want this floor cleaned once a day. I want it cleaned after every meal. I want this whole kitchen spotless and sanitized. When I started there, my first year it had brown spots and white tile. When I left, there were no more brown spots. We bleached that floor so many times that the spots went away. I also learned about sanitation, which I use this very day today. We had to heat the water at a certain temperature. We had to use chemicals at a certain point. We had to air dry everything. Everything was air dried. It wasn't run through a machine. Okay, so then I moved to Joplin, Missouri, and I went to work for Karen and David Shaffer. And you think in the restaurant business? No. I went to work for them in a car wash. David owned the Robo Car Wash, or managed the Robo Car Wash at 26th and Main and 9th and Illinois, right by where Roper's is. And that was a hot new thing because it had a little machine that would roll around your car and it would spray water on it and knock all the big stuff off. Well, Mr. Shaffer taught me back then that you take care of the customers and they'll take care of you. And that's going to be my theme today, is problem solving. It's essentially what that is. And we're going to talk about it in different ways. But and he died recently, within last month or so, or two. And even just a few days before he passed away, he had mentioned that we were talking about how consistent and how successful the restaurant had been for 50 years. And that was the reason why, he said, because you take care of the customer and they'll take care of you, meaning they'll come back and they'll continue to spend money. But you got to take care of them. So anyways, at the car wash, he told me, now you can just make sure the car gets washed. So there was a little, you could take a brush and hit a bar on that machine, it would stop it, and then I'd take off and scrub all the extra dirt and the tires and stuff off with that brush and then start it back up again. Then after it got done, if I didn't nobody behind him, my dad had an old chamois, I got it and I would wipe the spots off the cars in case you get a quarter tip. My best tip was when the Hershey candy bar guy came through. Because I did his car and he gave me a case of old, worn out candy bars and I was tickled pink. I mean, it was okay. And then sometimes when they get hot, they get a little white stain or something, and he picked them up somewhere. Man, that was it. And we barely got them in the freezer at home, so that was a good tip. But again, take care of the customers and they'll take care of you. So I learned that from him back way back then. Well, time goes, and my mom and Granny were best friends, and I've been with Schaefer's. Well, Deborah, my business partner now, she said yesterday, since she was 8 years old, we've been friends. and she's my sister's best friend. But so we moved. My dad retired. He was here working in the federal building in Joplin, Missouri, and he worked a 4-state area for the government. And then we moved back to Salina, Kansas, and worked. And I went to school at Bethany College. Quit there and went to work in the bar business. And a group called the United Entertainment hired me. One of the guys who was interested in that had started this thing called the pub. And back in those days, 18-year-olds could drink beer. And so we had this idea that we were gonna get air hockey, pong, foosball, all these electronic games were coming up. And so we got double wide trailers and put all these games in there and served beer to all these 18-year-olds. And I opened 30 bars in 3 states. Me. I wasn't 21 yet. I opened, and here's the thing. Just like being the 12-year-old, never crossed my mind that I couldn't do it. I just, let's go. Let's do it. So we opened these bars, and they're called the pub. I wanted to bring a picture, but I didn't get one. I still have a picture of it. It was a double wide at a construction company. We poured a slab, brought it in. I'd hire a manager. We'd fill it up with all the equipment. We do get the machines in there. Then we got the machines from a group out called United Entertainment out of Oklahoma City. Later on in life, I found out that they were mafia. We'll get into that just a little bit. Okay, but I had bars in every junior college town and some major university town. I had a bar on Massa Street in Lawrence. I had one in Pittsburgh where the casino is now. They got their lead from me. That bar was hopping. It was hopping. Right across from Chicken Annie's Annex, there was a place called the Old Blue Barn. Had a little arrow that pointed you back in the woods there. And so I had 30 bars, and then I also managed 3 amusement parks. One in Lake of the Ozarks. Many of you may have went there as a child. In Galveston, Texas, and Panama City, Florida, and I had 15 arcades in malls with all these games and stuff. So, and I'm just barely 21. I opened a bar in Fayetteville, Arkansas called Bump City, USA. That's when disco was hot, or getting ready to be hot. And I wasn't old enough to drink in Arkansas. I actually set up corporation, I had my name on stuff. And I wasn't old enough to drink in Arkansas, so I had a fake ID just in case. I went down there, and these guys with this United Entertainment group, which I went from, says, hey, we got a building just down from the university. You can go there, and we'll rent it to you. And I said, okay. They said, well, we've got it all set up. You just go in and tell the guy who you are, and you're going to buy his inventory from him. They had a couple pool tables in it and stuff. So I walked in, hi, I'm Mike Wiggins from United Entertainment and everything. The guy reaches under the counter and pulls out a gun and sticks it right here. He says, you're not buying anything. I said, okay. I said, can I use your phone? There was a phone behind you. He said, no, you can use the phone over there, and there's a pay phone on the wall. And it had a big out of order sign on it. So I went back to the hotel and told him what happened. And it took us 6 months to get him out of there. But in the meantime, we found this. It was an old Joe DiMaggio's pizza place, and we put Bump City, USA in that building. And I got pretty fortunate because one of the kids that I hired to help me, his dad was in charge of the alcohol and beverage control department, so we never had any trouble from that. So it was also across the street. This is an interesting, across the street from the #1 Pizza Hut in the country at the time, just around in Springdale, Arkansas. And they had discovered delivery pizza. And they had a separate building with 16 cars that just delivered through that university town and that complex. And that was kind of the beginning of that era as well. So anyways, once I figured out what was going on, and there was some, Pittsburgh, Kansas, when you go to Pittsburgh, I went to open this bar in Pittsburgh, we called it the Jolly Roger there. And I hired a guy, and he was great. He was a university professor, part-time accounting teacher, and he'd run a bar there and worked for some people. And so I hired him to run the place, and we got him in there. And then he came and it was going good, really good. But when I went to I had a national Coors account with Coors, because we put Coors in all our, well, when we first started, I don't want to go there, that's a long story. But anyways, we had a national Coors account. So I went to put Coors in this bar in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and they said, we don't do draft accounts in Pittsburgh, Kansas. I go, you're kidding me. You don't do draft beer in Pittsburgh? He said, we'll sell you the beer, but you have to buy all your own equipment, do everything, set it up. You can just come get the beer and we'll sell it to you. I said, I guess we'll do that. Well, come to find out, does the name like McGinney, either McGinney Brothers or all those Italian names in Pittsburgh mean anything to you? They're all related and they're all Italian from the good old Joe, what's in that guy's name? I can't remember, the old head mafia guy back down there.
Josiah.
Yeah, Josiah. All those guys are all related. And you didn't do business in their town. And so they just didn't have Coors accounts there. So I opened one up, and this guy went to work for me. We were rocking. So I go down there. My manager calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm going out of town, and I need you to manage to look over the place." I said, "Fine." But no, before then, he said, "I need you to come down and watch it. I'm on vacation." I said, "Okay." So I go down. So I go in one morning, and the place is just blasted. Somebody took sledgehammers, broke all the games. We had bands and dancing and stuff there too. It just destroyed the whole place. And I called the sheriff's office in Crawford County, which is also connected with all these people. And they sent out a deputy, and he looked like a fat Barney Fife and acted like one. And he walks in the door and he says, "Boy, they messed this place up really good." He said, "Where's your liquor license?" Those are the first two sentences out of his mouth. I said, "Well, it's hanging right up," and it wasn't on the wall. I said, "I'm sure it's in this mess somewhere." He said, "Well, I just want to let you know you can't open back up till you have a copy of that license on your wall." Would you believe that it took 6 months to get a copy of a license that we already had? He knew when he walked in the door what was going on. So, needless to say, I went back to my hotel. Oh no, then later on I opened it back up, I got going again. The rest of the story. I go out there, then this manager calls me, "I'm on vacation, one time, you gotta watch it." So I'm out there 1 in the morning, closing, I'm going outside, get in my car, boom, boom, 2 shotgun shells in the back window of my car, and I got a lot of glass and buckshot. At the hospital, I couldn't even get in the hospital, they wouldn't let me in. So I packed up and left. So if you ever see the movie, and this is a whole nother story. Okay, got done with that. I had a bar in Salina, Kansas called the Lamplighter Club. Seat 370 people. Our biggest night was 900. We had a band there called the Fifth Dimension that came in, and that was a pretty popular band at the time. They were playing at another venue, and then they came back and played at our place later. We were open because we were in the county. Okay, so that was a fun place. I had 6 bouncers and 2 deputy sheriffs that worked in that bar. And it was so loud in there, you couldn't hear anything, so we had 6 light bulbs in like different corners of the building, red lights, and depending on which lights were flashing, that would tell the bouncers what to do. I told the sheriff's deputies, never leave the front door. You just stay here at the door. But their job was to keep minors out and keep any trouble. Basically, if you paid these deputies money when they're not working, you paid them a lot of money back then, it kept other things from being a problem. But Homer Perez is my head bouncer. And the nice thing about Homer was, he wasn't a very big guy, but everybody knew that he'd be willing to take you on even knowing he was gonna get whipped. So people just didn't want to mess with it. So he would always run to the corners and do that. But I got out of that business when my competitor got murdered, a guy named Tom Young. They found him with a brain blown out, and the guy that killed him was in my bar that night, and I was there, and it was his best friend. And Tom was involved in guns, prostitution, drugs, that kind of stuff, and I wasn't, but and somehow they found $6,500 in his pocket and a gun in his belt, and he was tied to a chair like this on his knees, and then the bullet went through his head. And to this day, they've never arrested anybody for it. But anyways, those are some interesting stories. And then so I decided, okay, I'm done with this business. it's kind of like the restaurant business on steroids, you know, it's the same crowd, the bars are a lot older now, and most of them don't carry weapons, and actually, a guy got shot, brought in a gun, some guy, buddy peeps his girlfriend on the rear end, he brings a gun in, starts shooting, he kills a person, hits 2 other people, never touched the guy that he was going after. So those are some of the wild days. Watch Roadhouse, that was my life for a while. The only difference was we didn't have the chicken wire screen around the band. And nobody threw bottles at them there. Oh, we always put good bands there. Okay, so we're moving on. So I'm getting out of this. When Tom got killed, I said, okay, I don't know, maybe it was a crazy person I threw out, because there's a lot of fights, and I get hit more than the guys that were fighting, because I jump in the middle of them, right? I was young and not so smart back then. But, so I just said, I'm done with this. And I was dating a girl that was like cocaine. She was really bad for me. She's extraordinarily beautiful and just a lot of fun. But I needed to get away from her. So I went to college. I didn't tell anybody where I went. I went down to Bethany, and I went to Portia State and got a degree in computer science there, because that was my forte. I'm actually a pretty smart guy, and you can't tell that by the stories I'm telling you. But I did pretty well there. Got a job working for Mutual of Omaha in there. I got 5 job offers. There was a huge demand for computer people back then. And wrote code for them and was a systems analyst for them for about 12 years. And then I got divorced, and my mother said, you gotta get out of town because your wife's taking advantage of you. So I was always getting the kids and having to do things for her. And I really didn't want to get divorced, but so my mom said, you gotta move. So I moved to Kansas City, and one of the things I did right before I left Mutual was I was hiring, when I started, we had 500 computer people in our building. It was the 13th largest computer system in the United States. And it also had something to do with Offutt Air Force Base, which is in Omaha as well. So, I was so good at visiting with people I knew and bringing them in to the business. They said, why don't you just be a full-time recruiter and work in our human resources department? We had a human resources department in the computer, because we had 500 people there. So when I left, we had 1,200 people. And I probably interviewed or hired almost all of them. And I didn't make the decisions. I would go out and screen them and then bring them in and have, like we own modules on satellites for communications. But Mutual of Omaha is a huge company. I mean, they got places in Japan and South America and everywhere. And they have hundreds and hundreds of companies. But, so I would go out, and the telecommunications guy would say, Mike, if you can find a guy, there's a big wire, telecommunications wire has like 34 things on it, and if you can find a guy that knows what half those 34 wires are, I want to talk to him. So he brings I found a guy, well, we're at Offutt Air Force Base, you know, the Air Force One hangs out there. So they have some Chief Master Sergeant guys that got more stripes. I couldn't put them all on my arm, they got so many. And I found 2 guys at that, and they hired them. That was my job, was to go out and find the people, bring them. I said, you know, this pays a lot of money on the civilian side, so I'm gonna go and be a headhunter. So I went to Kansas City, packed up my bags, got an office at 9th and Broadway. Again, this is the same kid that cooked and didn't know what the hell he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I got a job at 9th and Broadway in the old Board of Trade building, and opened shop, and I billed $1.3 million my first year. I was making about a little over 50 at Mutual of Omaha, and it was great. Then I thought, well, then companies like DST was in Kansas City, my neighbor there, they were a mutual funds company. They've since sold, and they also own Missouri Southern Railroad, I think, is one of their companies. But they're a mutual funds processing company, and I put together, they wanted consultants. They didn't want to hire full-time people. They wanted like temps. But the temps may last 2 or 3 years. So I billed a person out, hire them for $50,000, and then bill them out for, you know, $200,000. Then I went to Chicago. I lived in Kansas City, and I could go from my little apartment in Kansas City to the Kansas City airport, park right by the door. You can't do that anymore. Right by the door, walk in, and fly to Chicago and back for $69. and I'd have a cab waiting for me. I said, if I'm not here this time, I'll pay you next time. I had a little room at the Allerton Hotel in Chicago, where in case I wanted to stay the night or two. I put 13 people there and started billing them out. And then I also had people at DuPont in Delaware. So that was a little bit of my technical background. And then the war happened, Iraq and Iran. And they said, well, do you want to, I'm trying to make this fast and short. We could talk, I could tell you, but there's some side stories here. So they bombed the war in Iraq, and all my customers, and this is the reason you hire consultants, they said, we're not sure, the first time they weren't sure what was going to happen. So they said, we're going to put our projects on hold. So essentially, I had to lay off all my guys, gals and guys, and I made a lot of money. I said, I'm just going to retire. So 30 years ago, or 35 years ago, I retired. And I'm a stamp collector. I said, I'm going to play with my stamps. And I hosted the largest stamp show in the Midwest at the Hyatt Regency in Kansas City for 5 years. It's a big show like that. Airplane that flies upside down, we'd show it. They'd have exhibits, they'd have all kinds of things there. And I didn't know anything about stamp shows either, but we did it. We had great shows. It was what they called one of the World Series shows. It was a very nice show. But so anyways, did that, and then I'm in the middle of that, and a good friend of mine, Danny Tipton, worked for a small business college in Kansas City, says, hey, you're not doing anything. I said, I am too. I'm fine. He said, I need you to, I've got an instructor that's sick, I need you to come teach accounting and business math at the university. I said, okay, I'll do that for a little while, just until you get somebody hired. Well, that lasted about a year, and then Shaffer's called me. Continued to be lifelong friends, always. They had this little restaurant they've had for about 20 years in Webb City, where Burger King is now, right next to Sonic. They bought that. They bought an old Dog and Suds restaurant, which is like a Sonic. And Dog and Suds was good, but it was all run down, beat up. And they sold their family farm, which by the way, didn't have running water. It had running water, but it didn't have an indoor bathroom. And they sold their farm, bought this restaurant, opened it up, and would drive it like Sonic. And then they evolved, and then it caught fire one day, and then when they rebuilt it, they added on, I think there was a dozen seats or so, and then it went to 87. And Granny's always wanted to just make pies, but she knew she was smart enough that you couldn't just make pies and make a living. It's too hard to do, so they started selling they had the hamburgers and stuff early on. They bought a Tasty Freeze franchise when they first opened it up after that. And then Tasty Freeze started cutting the quality. The hamburger was there's a beef shortage, so they started putting soybean and stuff in their hamburgers. Mr. Shaffer said, we're not doing that. So we found a meat packer in Lamar. They started doing their own, and then they evolved up into Granny Shaffer's restaurant down there. Then they got into financial trouble with the IRS. They let their kids try to run. They wanted to try to retire, so they let their kids run the restaurant for a little while, and it had some issues. Now, I don't need to go into all that, but so they called me up and says, we need help. And everybody didn't think I was doing anything. Why don't you come up and help us? And there is no better lure in the world than to say, do you want to come play restaurant with no commitment? Everybody wants to play restaurant. And if you don't, you're lying. I'm telling you. Everybody wants to play restaurant. So I get up here, I come up, they load up what stuff I got up there, and they got me a place to stay. Ruthie had a house, her daughter Ruth Ann, and she had moved. And so I rented her house for a while, then I ended up buying it. But so I ran the restaurant for a while, and then we opened a second restaurant where I grew up in Sonic, Kansas. I called growing up as much as I moved. That was our home base. That's where I was born. There was a little restaurant there called the Brookville Hotel. Been there like 105 years. It was a family-style fried chicken restaurant. That's all they sold. You could not, you wanted ham, you were out of luck. It ain't gonna happen, buddy. If you went there, you better put a little ham in your pocket, because you're not gonna get it anywhere else. And they would, later on in years, I was looking at, after I sold chicken, actually Mark, the guy who, they had Brookville Hotel. So anyways, I don't know where it's going with that. But we got the Brookville Hotel. I opened a restaurant like the Brookville Hotel on Range Line, and we called it Dixieland Chicken. So we had Granny Shaffer's down the road where Burger King is, and then we had Dixieland Chicken. And it was just, we thought, gosh, I don't know if we'll do any good or not. We opened on a Wednesday night, and this is Joplin, Webb City area. This is how everybody here works. They give you one shot. You know, they go in and either you're good or bad. And now it's even worse with Facebook. They try to rip you apart. So anyways, so we opened the door on a Wednesday night. We didn't tell anybody. We didn't say soft opening. We didn't say nothing. All we did was turn on the lights. We had 900 people through there. And it was family style fried chicken. And I thought the reason I wanted to do that is I was thinking to the future, you know, because what we do is really complicated. It's probably the most complicated way you can do business. Have a huge menu, we inventory lots of items, people have to know how to prepare. And I thought this would be idiot proof. All you got is the same, everybody gets the same thing. You know, if you have 4 people, you get this size bowl. If you get 8 people, you get this size bowl of gravy. And everybody gets potatoes and gravy and fruit and green beans and a platter of fried chicken. Basically, kind of budget a half a chicken per person. And it was going good. The only thing we had to change real quick was we were charging for a bigger group, we were charging a gratuity, automatic gratuity. I was sitting in the barber shop downtown Heath Brothers one day, and some guy was bitching about eating our restaurant, and he had to pay. He didn't know who I was from Adam, having to pay that gratuity. He's never going back. So I said, we're not doing that anymore. We'll just let it fly and see what happens. So we were going at that 2 years. Okay, fast forward, Granny Shaffer's, the ceiling fell in. It was built like this so the water wouldn't run off on the cars at the car top. So guess what? All down that middle, it rotted out over the 30 or 40 years that building was there. And it literally split apart. So we had to spend mega bucks, literally the price of rebuilding the building to put it back together. And they did. We decided, I said, well, why don't we got together, Granny, myself, and David, because I own the building we're in now, and they own that one. So what are we gonna do? I said, let's just put them together. And I said, I think we can at least stay the same money. You know, because we had a good evening business with the chicken, we had a great breakfast and lunch with the Granny Shaffer's. Let's put them together. Mr. Shaffer said it'll never work. Never. He was always a pessimist in our group. And Granny said, you'll have more damn business, you know what to do with it. She was right. She's a really smart lady. But so anyways, that's the story, how we got where we're at today. And that was 30 years ago that we moved those two operations together, and it's grown ever since into different things. Now, let's go back. I want to talk a little bit about what I really want to talk about. I'm sorry that story's so long, but I got lots to talk about.
That's why I wanted to do.
Yeah. That's well, because you got a lot to say. You got a lot of knowledge there. And along those roads, I made a lot of missteps as well, but I learned from them and just kept going. I never thought for a minute that I couldn't do anything. There's a book I reference a lot called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's an older book, and it's got some people in it and older, you know, like Carnegie and stuff that were his friends. And he says that and you look at Tony Robbins and all these motivational speakers, they stole all this stuff from him. And his concept was what the mind can conceive and believe, you can achieve. So if you get in your mind and you conceive some idea of things you want to do or be, and you believe it, you can do it. And I'm going to tell you a quick off-the-wall story about my wife, my ex-wife. First time I saw her, I told the guy in the cubicle next to me, I was a computer programmer, I'm going to marry her someday. He said, you don't even know what her name is. I said, yeah, but I'm going to marry her. And by God, I set off on a mission that I was going to marry that girl. She was married. I didn't know anything about her, didn't know her name. And you know, 2 years later, I married her. So, but you better be careful what you wish for. But it works. It works. Because I never give up on it. And I had hardships. She dated other guys and blah, blah, blah. I got divorced. I had to get through the divorce thing. I had to get her divorced before I could marry her. I just went to go round and round. But I believe that. What you can conceive. Jennifer's a good example of it. She wanted a deli her whole life. I told her one time, I said, don't ever give up on your dream, because that's what you want. And if you can conceive it in your head, you can do it. And you might not like the results when you get done, but that's what it's going to be. And that book's Think and Grow Rich. There's so many great stories in there that can help you be successful. Now, what I got most, I joined the Restaurant Association. I'm past state president of the Restaurant Association. I was also on their national board of directors. And one of the best parts of that is a group just like this right here. is, and I'm doing all the talking, but is to sit down and I would, they have so many benefits, but the number one benefit was sitting at the table with my peers and people who do what I do and be able to and say, hey, I'm having problems with turnover right now. And everybody says, yeah, so are we. You think, God, I'm not the only guy. I thought I was a bad guy. No, so just to sit around, we're going to talk a little bit about that if I have time. I don't know how much time I've got. Okay, here's the main thing. This is what we all do. We all are in business for this. And don't forget, this is the most important what I'm going to say today, is we are in the business of solving problems. And I tell my staff this every day. When that person walks in the door of the restaurant, they got a problem. That means they're hungry and they want some food to eat. Once they sit down, their plate might not be right, so you solve the problem. We're in the business. I don't care. What business are you in? Yes. What business?
Insurance.
Insurance. Okay. People come to you, they need insurance. But you have to solve their problem, so you're going to have to listen to them, find out what they want, and you have to, and so we have to find out what our customers want too. Might not be exactly what's on the menu, but we're going to solve that problem. And we're all in, I don't know, what businesses are you guys in?
So I am in consulting, business
Okay, how
and
about these back
education
here?
consulting.
At libraries.
Oh, library, yeah.
Social services.
Pardon me?
Social services.
Okay, anybody else? Share with me.
I'm in business consulting.
I know what you're in. How about these two guys?
I'm in AI consulting.
AI consulting, cool.
Digital marketing.
Okay, so, for example, in AI, before you can solve a problem with AI, you gotta figure out what the problem is. This, when I went to work for Music Beaumont, they didn't hire me because I was new. Actually, they spent 6 months training me, but it's because I had the ability to communicate with people and learn and solve problems. And that's the key to any business. You may not like, just like I charged the 18% gratuity or whatever for 8 or more people. They didn't like that, so I had to solve the problem and get rid of that. But you're in the problem solving business. Now I get customers that aren't happy, and this drives me crazy. Services, well, they want our Philly steak sandwich that comes on a bun, and they want it on a bread. And I just told them we couldn't do it. And I said, why? We have the bread and we have the Philly. Well, it's not on the menu that way. Well, that doesn't work. If we got in the building, we're gonna make it happen. We'll figure out a way. And most of them don't ask how much. My dad used to get so mad, he'd say, I want a baked potato with my meal instead of the potato salad. Well, that'll be $3. And I think he maybe felt, because he was poor growing up, and I think maybe he felt like they, rubbed him the wrong way. He says, well, I didn't ask you how much, I just want it, So, but you try to solve the problem from what, so we're all in the problem solving business. Every single one. And if you solve your customer's problem, and they're all individual, you have to, the library, she's got a ton of customers over there, and they all have different needs. You can't just serve your Philly steak sandwich on a bun. You gotta make it on whatever they want it on. So my brother-in-law just retired from he's the dean of the library at Kansas State University. And let me tell you, I couldn't believe what they do there. It's unbelievable. But it's not like the library I grew up in, that's for sure. So you all have an AI, that's a whole new concept. First of all, you have to sell people that you can even do something for them. I would imagine that's a big challenge. So anyways, in business consulting, I don't even know what that is.
It's solving people's problems.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
I get banks call me sometimes and say, hey, would you go talk to this restaurant guy? He's having some problems. And I tell some of them to close it up and they won't listen. But I have vendors, food vendors, they tell me all the time they try to help their customers, but their customers already think they know it all. I said, we gotta try to figure a way around that so you can make them think that it's their idea instead of your idea. And then you can help them solve their problems, because restaurant people are very much that way. Let me look at my others. Another thing, kind of in the problem solving theme is you help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want. And I try to convince my staff of that as well. If you want, your customer wants the bread instead of the bun, for example, I'll stick with that. And you say, well, I'm not supposed to do it, but I'll go ahead and do it for you anyways. That server's gonna make a better tip, even though the server knows they can do it. When I was a headhunter, let me tell you this, I'll tell you a little secret, how I made so much money doing that. Because I get these guys lined up, and I'd say, okay, I got a job for you for 50 grand. Or I know I have a job for them for 50 grand. The clients interviewed them, they wanna hire them for 50 grand. And I asked the guy, I said, well, how much do you want? He says, and originally when we were interviewing, he wanted 40, for example. And I said, oh boy, I don't know if we can get that or not. But, and I already know I got 50 grand in my pocket for him. But if I can get that 40, can you start 2 weeks from tomorrow? I didn't have to wait for him to ask his wife, because it's all done. Can you start? If I can get you that 40 grand, can you start 2 weeks from tomorrow? Well, and I said, it's gonna be tough, but I think I can do it. He said, yeah. So I wait about 4 hours and I call him back. I already got the offer. And I said, congratulations, you got 50 grand. You're starting 2 weeks from tomorrow. So there's no, they didn't have to make a decision. It's closing the deal. And it's the same with your customers. I will do this for you. And I'll make sure you get bread on your sandwich. Okay, I want to do a little exercise here and quit me talking. I want to go around the room and see what your challenges are. So if you have a challenge of some kind, is that like a problem? Well, let's see if our little group can help you figure out your challenge. Does anybody have a challenge? If you don't want to talk, I'm going to pass around paper. You have to write it down without your name on it. I'm going to bring it up here and we're going to read them. Because I brought extra pens and paper. That's the only thing I came with. So if somebody come up with, surely you have challenges. Okay, let's talk to Mr. AI. How do people even know what you do?
So that is actually the big problem I have is the people's preconceived perceptions of what it is. And so a lot of my challenge is getting over people's general intimidation of that's just AI in general. A lot of them, when you say AI, they kind of think, Skynet from Terminator, like they think it's gonna take over the world. I was like, I promise you I'm not gonna take over your world, I wanna help you in your business. And so it's actually, a lot of them only focus on a very narrow scope of what AI can do, and they're so worried about what could happen and based on what Hollywood shows them that they don't actually open their minds to what I have to tell them.
And how do you get over that challenge?
So I do what my dad calls it presenting the menu. And so basically I kind of walk them through the general history of it and explain to them like, this really isn't something to be scared of, it's just a really complicated math formula. And I kind of walk them through like, I can help you, I'll do a lot of work with manufacturers, like I can cut down on your energy bill, I can cut down on your machine breakdown time, I can make sure that your employees are more productive, kind of display the benefits. But a lot of people are already so turned off by the fact that I said AI, they don't actually want to listen to me.
Now, you said the word benefit. There's two different things. Benefits and features, and you described to me features. Features is like a car. I got a car here and it's got a hard top or a soft top, it's got leather seats, it's got fancy wheels, those are features. The benefits are, what's it gonna do for that customer? So you need to figure out a way to help that customer, give them some examples, just not say, well, we can do this for you, but if you do have maybe you have another customer that's in manufacturing that you can show them the benefit for them. Because you can list all the features in the world and they only want one of them. That's what it's gonna do for them.
And going back to your problem solving,
Right.
ask them what problems do you have in your business and this is how I can help
Yeah, and
mitigate those problems.
and you might wanna keep it just one little problem at first and solve that one. Because you get too many, then you're gonna overwhelm them, not you, but them. Then you can pick it up from there.
Well, and I was just thinking, you're trying to solve the problem. And I don't know that everybody cares exactly how you're solving it as far as
Right.
using AI, but you're solving that problem.
Yeah.
Cause I can solve a problem for someone and they don't say, well, what's the underlying way that you're doing that, you know, I mean, they're just, they just
Right.
want the problem solved. So I
Right.
don't have to scare them with
And that's-
AI or, you know, COBOL or whatever, I mean, you know, something that I'm using, I can just solve their problem.
Okay. Picking on you next. What's one of your problems? Tell me your name.
Austin Miles.
Austin. And where do you work?
I have my digital marketing agency.
Digital marketing, okay.
Alright, so I'm just really looking to pivot to kind of get out of the marketing market right now because it's really saturated around here. And it's hard to find clients that want to pay like what I need for services, like to actually like make it out on top. And I've just been having trouble finding which areas I could be good at to pivot.
Explain to me what digital marketing is.
So I do social media management and I do advertising on all platforms and I develop websites. So just anything under the sun.
And there's many people that do that.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So not only is it the market saturated, but it's hard to find a bunch of tightwad, low income Joplinites that want to pay for it. Sorry. I'm one of them. I try to hire some high school kid to do it, but it never works out. So how, have you thought about what you want to do?
Yes, I have, but all of it is a good idea until I really like put it to plan.
Right.
So I just gotta find some time to do that, just to do it, I guess.
So you have some ideas, but you know, my daughter came to me one time, she makes more money than I do, her husband makes more money than I do. She said, hey Dad, we wanna open a donut shop. I said, go get the yellow pad and pencil, honey, we gotta talk. And we just loaded out how you can't make any money in the donut business unless you wanna get up in the morning, work harder than you're already working. But you make some sense, you know, you gotta sit down with a pad and paper and have your idea. And the other thing is for everyone, I've consulted with a lot of restaurants, like I said, for other banks and organizations. And sometimes I tell them they need to lock it up and they don't wanna do it. And even Mr. Shaffer's mother-in-law owned a printing and an office supply store in Fort Scott. Her son wanted to just go door to door, county to county and sell paper supplies. He wasn't making any money. But she took her social security to keep that store open just so he could keep it a job. And they tried to convince her for years not to do that, but she would do it. She lived pretty sadly. But then, so if it doesn't work, maybe come up with a different plan or whatever. You obviously have some knowledge about what you're doing or make something different than what everybody has. You know, maybe everybody's selling the same thing, but you can add a little, put some bread on your, instead of a bun on your Philly steak sandwich that somebody wants to buy. Have you ever talked, do you have customers now that you support, or do you work for anybody now at all?
Not right now.
All right, who were you working for?
I did have a couple landscaping companies just under a social media management for a little bit until they just couldn't pay for it anymore. So
Okay, now I'm gonna go to another chapter in this book called Think and Grow Rich, and what he says in that book is you need to create a group of mentors, a group of people that do what you do that you can go to. And it might be like for the restaurant business, it could be a group of restaurant friends, you know, or a group of digital marketing people you can go to, say, I got this idea, what do you think? And they're gonna be honest with you and say, you know, I don't like it, but maybe that's what you wanna do, but at least, then maybe they'll give you some ideas and help you be successful. And if you're just starting out, first thing is get it on paper, figure out what you wanna do, and once you get ready to blast off, is get your group of mentors together and bounce it off of them. And don't think of them as competition. I'm in the restaurant business, and if I thought of every restaurant in Joplin that opened up as competition, I'd be brain dead. I look at me, I'm my only competition. If I don't do a good job at what I do, and don't take care of my business, And as Mr. Shaffer, you always said, take care of the customer, and they take care of you. I do that. I don't care. Brand new restaurant open across the street, I don't care. I worry about me, and we just, what I gotta do is sharpen my crew up and say, okay, now we gotta stay on the game here and be the best we can do. Because everybody has competition, and everybody starts. So don't be afraid of talking to people that you know might be your competition. You may not wanna give them all your ideas, but you need a group of mentors. It could be a banker, a friend, somebody you went to college with that does what you do, an old guy like me that doesn't understand what you do, so you have to explain it to him, and maybe that'll help you understand better what you're gonna do. So that's what, anybody have any other ideas for him? You're just starting, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're just getting going. Maybe you can, another thing that you wanna do is do some of the stuff you want for free. You may wanna go to the Joplin Chamber. God, I've fed those people tons of stuff for nothing. But, you know, and I'll give you a story about that. One day we were at I don't know what it was a pretty nice event, and we'd done the hors d'oeuvres, and we can do some lower, and I'm trying to get away from it because it's labor intensive, but we did a really incredible, better than any casino could have done anybody. And I'm sitting beside the city clerk of Joplin here, I'm in the middle, the city clerk of Webb City here, and they were both arguing who did the food, and I'm standing in the middle. And one lady says, well, I think Granny Sheepers, no, Granny Sheepers didn't do that, they do fried chicken and potatoes and gravy. Yes, they did. I'm standing right there. And I said, yeah, we did. And by doing those kind of things, if that's what you want to do, now you gotta be real careful, because then I started doing a lot of that kind of stuff, so people probably started calling me for it, and I really didn't want to do it, I was just doing it to help the chamber out at the time. And so you might want to offer some services to people, then the word will get out. Because I got a ton of business from just that free. And they have nicer words than free for it, but my vocabulary's not that great. Okay, you got your work cut out for you. Trust this guy right here, he can help you a lot. And get your group of, get some people together, just sit down with them someday, say, I wanna buy a cup of coffee or Coke, or Jennifer's place, and I wanna talk, but you gotta get your ideas down, cause you can't just say, I got an idea, and they say, what is it? I don't know what I wanna do. You know you wanna do something in the digital world and the social media world. There's a big demand, and I can tell you my instance, I don't have time to do social media and that kind of stuff, and to put my stuff out there and come up with a plan. So if you could come up with a plan that's affordable for very small businesses, because that's a niche, nobody wants it because they don't have any money. But if you get 10 of them, it's called residual income. That's income that sells it. You know it's residual income because once they pay her, if she sells them a life insurance policy or a homeowner, hopefully they buy it forever. So you don't have to sell it one time. So you go in and sell a social media service. Well, okay, I'm gonna come in, and I'm not, and you don't want to make them do the work and take the pictures and everything. They don't have time for all that. You come in, you give them a whole package, you go in, you sit down with them and you say, okay, I'll do your social media for you. I'll come in once a week, once a month, whatever, and here's what I gotta charge you. You know, I gotta make $20 an hour or 30 or whatever you're gonna do, put that, figure it out. And then you take care of them. And then you get 10 of those and then you charge them $100. Now you're making $1,000. You get 20 of them and then build it into your time. Joel does a lot of that kind of stuff too. He builds customers, he's got a customer base that he takes care of. And it's residual because he's doing it every single week. My dad was a state farm agent after he retired from the government. And he worked for 25 years, and he had a huge base of life insurance that they were paying residual income on that paid my mom for the rest of her life. Okay, that's good.
Well, and as far as you're concerned, the guy that takes care of my Facebook page started working for me for pizza. I had Cheesies. And then he started working for pizza and a little bit of money as I could afford. And then he's been with me now 8 years, and we pay him pretty good every month because we can afford it now. So where you said, you know, giving stuff away for free, maybe you work out deals with businesses.
And you also have an example that you can show people of things you've done. And I'm the worst self-promoter in the world, really I am. Yeah, I am the worst. Okay, We got 5 minutes left. Yeah.
I will add one thing. I worked for the best boss ever, who said, plan the work the plan, and always, always, always take care of your customer. That was the mantra. We said it every day. We did it every day. And I worked for him, 5 years in a row, 20% increase in sales for the whole group, year over year, every year for 5 years. Then they got rid of him.
Yeah.
And so then sales went whoosh. But he built a team with plan the work the plan, and always, always, always take care of your customer.
Okay, one more thing, and I've talked to Jennifer and Mike about this, and all my restaurant friends will all not talk about it, is, and this will help you as well. You need to figure out who you want to be and what you are. In other words, I'm a comfort food restaurant. So I love scallops, but nobody's gonna go to Granny Shaffer's to eat scallops. So I don't wanna feature scallops, I don't even wanna think about it. If I wanna do it, I'll put it on my grill, cook it at home. Be who you are and do not get out of it. When I say KFC, what do you think of?
Chicken.
When I say pizza, what do you think of?
Simple science.
Sorry. Simple science. But, so you gotta be who you do. I do presentations twice a year at the University of Missouri, and that's the topic of the whole seminar, is be who you are. McDonald's is trying to sell tacos, burritos, pancakes. They've tried everything in the world. If you wanna do that, you can still have your deli, but open another restaurant to do those kind of things. Don't try to mix them up, because it takes your focus away from what you do and you do well and why your customers go there. So when people are out driving around, what do you want to eat, honey? I don't know. They don't say, do you want to go here or there most of the time. They say, what do you want? Do you want fish? Do you want pizza? Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want comfort food? Whatever. You know, we're kind of a comfort food niche. So be who you are. You know, if you're going to sell insurance, try to focus on, would you sell one kind of insurance? Everything?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. But sell insurance, don't try to sell pizzas on the side. You know? You'd be surprised. And I think McDonald's is finally getting it. They opened another kind of restaurant for their coffee shop concept instead of trying to promote. I used to have a really good friend that owned a bunch of McDonald's, and we'd go to Washington, D.C. and lobby together. He hated it when they put all that coffee equipment in their restaurant. He said, man, this is going to cost me a bundle, but I think it paid some dividends. Okay, anybody else have anything else?
I've got to run,
I'm done.
but I want to say this. Mike, you have been an incredible inspiration for decades in this community, whether you realize it or not. And the collective of this community knows about your giving heart and being a mentor without being called a mentor.
Right.
So a couple things I want to acknowledge. One, that you were the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce Small Business of the Year in 2003.
Well, yeah, 2 or 3, yeah.
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 And then also.
That's when there was only one.
Yeah.
I had to compete with Ronald McDonald.
With everybody. And the other thing is, when we stood up 1 million cups, I think 3 years ago, you provided the coffee. And Lowell brought over the coffee when we were at the ATTC, and knowing what one of those big containers costs on your menu, we added it up, and it's just over $2,000 worth of coffee that you donated for this organization.
Yeah.
That's just one thing that we're aware of in this community where you have given back, and we know there's a whole bunch more, just like you've got a lot of side stories. But just for me personally, you have been an incredible person to look up
I've been
to.
around for a long time.
And 2 things that you've said it once, but you've said it twice today that has really resonated with me. It's my takeaway. And you said, I never knew that I couldn't do it. And that sums up exactly what an entrepreneur is. And you're one of my inspiring entrepreneurs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Yeah.
If you want the rest of the story, you can call me at the restaurant.
Come by and buy you a cup of coffee.
There's some good ones. Yeah. Thank you all.